In today's video, I will be lucky to survive. That was a very painful uphill segment. What's up, friends? In today's video, I will be lucky to survive. I feel horrible. My stomach feels weird. My legs hurt from Saturday when I did the pretzel. And it's Monday prime time again. There are the Monday prime time staples like Douglas and Dunn, which means this is going to be yet another sufferfest. But this time, I might not be able to follow. I was even wondering if I should start today. So this was a stage 4 of the Pinarello powered Z Racing series on loop-de-loop course. We would do 2 laps on it, and it would total to about 25 kilometers and 290 vertical meters. It is in line with how the races were in the several last weeks. There are 2 main climbs on this course, obviously the Hilly KOM times 2, which is the place where the race would be decided and presumably where I would get dropped from the front group, because this climb is long enough for the effort to ramp up really high. And also in the starting chat there were talks about going for a very specific GC time on the KOM, so there wasn't a huge chance for me to stay with the front group, but obviously I plan to go with all my power to attack these climbs, even though I didn't feel really good. As I mentioned at the start of the race, I didn't know what it was. I probably didn't have the best nutrition on the day, and not even the best sleep, which is what happens to me lately sometimes, that I wake up in the middle of the night, then I cannot fall asleep, and then I'm tired for the following day. Here we are entering the S's. It's not my most favorite part of this course, or Watopia for that matter. It's a very rolling place, which puts quite a bit of pressure on your legs, and the rapid switches between climbing and descending are not something that I really prefer. At this point the group was pretty compact, with a slight attempt for a breakaway here, which would be a miracle if it worked, really. I think at this point of the race you cannot really put a winning move. You can easily lose the race, but mainly at this level, if you want to win the race, you have to put the deciding move on a harder climb or a harder section of the race. This is the place where you want to use your featherweight, because after this slight uphill there is the descent towards the sprint banner where you get another power up, so definitely use your featherweights here. Make sure you use the featherweight early enough, because if you carry that featherweight into the descent, it's going to slow you down unnecessarily. As you can see, I didn't time it to the best of my abilities. I should have used it a little sooner, but it wasn't anything tragic. And you can see that even though that climb, the last climb of the S's, was pretty short, it managed to tear up the group pretty well. And when something like that happens, it usually depends on what is the nature of the course after that hill. If it's flat or it's a descent, the group usually manages to get together back. Here it was split pretty good, so we will see if there's any major split of the group. In terms of positioning, lately I'm trying to not be at the back of the group, which was something I was doing for a long time. I feel that if you are sort of in the middle of the group, you can still benefit from the full drafting effect, but you can carry the momentum way better and not get dropped if the effort level suddenly increases. So if you have the power to stay in the, I would say, half of the group or the front third, definitely good way to do. This is another slight uphill segment from the Italian Vias. Not a particularly significant uphill, but enough to ramp up the effort of the group. And that can split up the group again. But as you can see, the group managed to stay together, even though that after the SS it looked like it was dragging a bit. And here was the first section of the race where I felt that this is going to be a pretty challenging race for me, because I started fading to the back of the group, and I really needed to increase my effort to stay with the group. Obviously, when you are racing in prime time like this, and by the way, I've been asked about it in the comments, I consider prime time Monday 6 p.m. because that's the race that's got the biggest field and usually the best riders are in there. So it's the most competitive. I've also heard that the Wednesday 6 p.m. is very competitive, so that might be considered prime time as well. But these races are very competitive and way harder than if you were doing the same course in a different time. Now we are entering the S's from the other side. That's the longish climb. And by the way, I know that speaking about long climbs on Zwift, it sounds kind of hilarious, because obviously in terms of what climbs are usually in the real life, this is basically like nothing. But obviously the effort level on Zwift is very high for pretty much any category you are racing in. And even such a small, basically 300 meters uphill segment can really put a lot of fatigue in your legs, especially when you do not specifically train that kind of effort. And you can really see that I'm basically above my threshold power right here, or around it at least, and I'm barely hanging onto the group. But my goal, at least on the first lap, was to stay with the front at least until the Hilly KOM, which I expected would split the group into pieces. Here we are entering back the downtown portion of the race, which is always a nice opportunity to recover from the efforts on the S's. And still a lot of riders in the front group. So after a short downhill section, we are entering the downtown Watopia again, and we would enter the second part of the loop, which is going to be on the Hilly KOM. And this effort level was actually quite frightening to me, because we were still on the flats in a place where we were supposed to recover before the big effort on the climb, but I still needed to keep above 200 watts to stay with the bunch. Only now, very shortly before the climb, the effort eased up a little bit. And here comes the usual joking in the chat before a hard effort. But I was entering the climb at almost 160 BPM, which isn't a place I want to be at. Ideally, I would like to enter climb below 150 BPM, which would mean I managed to recover. And here it comes. My plan for this climb, for the first one, was to keep up with the tempo of the group, unless it was absolutely unrealistic. And if I couldn't do that, I at least didn't want to get completely dropped, completely bonk. So I popped up my featherweight, which was the other power up we received. And you can see that you need about 6.5 watts per kilo to climb this with the front group in B prime time. So that's a power that I can keep for about, I would say, something between 1 and 2 minutes. And this climb is actually, I believe, longer. So you can already see the front escaping. But like I said, that wasn't something I was surprised by. I also don't like this little descent in the middle of the climb, because it really breaks up your rhythm and it's hard to get back into the climbing effort. And you can see the effort of the group is lowering a little bit. Now it's around 5.5 watts per kilo. But the front is already basically gone. I'm still at the 35th place out of 109 riders, so I don't consider this a bad climbing effort. And you can see that even at the top, I'm trying to maintain a power over my FTP to not get dropped by the momentum after the climb. But unfortunately, I wasn't the only one who was doing that. So you can see that I managed to form a small group, but I wanted to chase the front. But I quickly realized that it's not possible, even though I hoped that if I popped featherweight, I would be able to chase them better, but they were just flying off. And even though I was doing 4.5 watts per kilo, I figured this might be it for me in the front. So basically the front from before the climb split into 3 groups. The front, the chasing group, in which I'm currently in, and the group that was completely dropped. And I hoped that I could finish the race at least in this chasing group, because those were the riders who performed on the climb similarly as I did. So now we are entering the downhill section of the climb, which is always a welcome opportunity to recover. And take a look at the crossroads now. There were actually some riders who went straight, and I don't know how is it possible actually to do this in a race. Do you see that at the top? Actually, 2 of them. Never knew that was something that was possible during a race. I don't think it's possible to change directions. And here you can see Dan wondering about the same thing in the chat. So I had a little bit of time to drink. I'm currently trying to increase the resistance of my stomach to carbs. I want to up the carb intake during races. Currently, I'm drinking about 40 to 50 grams of carbs during my races. I would like to increase that, basically to double that amount. But obviously that is something that you cannot do suddenly. You need to train your gut to accept that amount. So the first lap of the course is done. I'm not in a bad spot per se. I'm in the first half, firmly in the first half, and I have a group to ride with. So there's not a huge risk of me getting caught by another group.
That was a very painful uphill segment.
Yeah, climbing is still something that I try to learn. Obviously, the biggest help for me would be if I lost more weight. I still have 74 kilos, which is way too much for proper climbing performance. In the last few months, I'm not particularly successful with my weight loss, which basically boils down to my weak mental toughness. I cannot deny myself the sweets and the beer, and I try to push it through the cycling efforts, but it doesn't really work well, to be honest. So if I really want to push over the winter, I will need to change my eating, drink less beer, and do more smart stuff, basically. So our chasing group got bigger right here, which is always nice, because when the group is small, the riders can get a little bit sleepy and get comfortable a little too much. But when you have like, how much is it? 20, 15 riders in a group, you can rest assured that the effort will stay consistently high.
Already guys going back. It can be possible, right?
Yeah, that definitely wasn't possible. I think something weird was going on in this race. I actually never thought that you could change directions while you are in race, but probably there's a way in which you can. I'm not really sure what was happening here. If you know, let me know in the comments if it's possible. But there were 3 riders, as you can see, going in the other direction. And it is not possible that they would be that much in front of us. There's the 4th. I'm currently at 158 BPM, which I would say is a pretty good spot for me for sustained riding. It's a little too much for recovery, which I would ideally want before a climb. And it is too low for high effort, like on a climb or in a rolling terrain. But riding on the flats, I think it's actually where I want to be at to perform well. And here it is going to increase again with the series of small climbs, which are not significant, but really force you to move your legs a little bit. Yeah, you can see that it is a very small uphill, like 3 or 4%, but the group instantly increases the effort to over 4.5 watts per kilo. This is what a small incline on Zwift can do. Outdoors, it would be negligible. You would probably almost, not realize you are on such uphill. On Zwift, it's significant because the races are so short. You need to push on these climbs. It was a position right here that I expect myself to be in at this point of the race. I didn't think I would be at the front right here, but I didn't want to be in the back either. But the 50th place was probably the last place that I would be content with to finish the race at, because I still consider myself above average B rider. Not the top, definitely, but above average, yes. So finishing in the first half is obviously my goal for each B race, even though if I'm racing prime time. I popped the aero boost here because I didn't want to risk that I would be dropped on the rolling terrain, which can happen way easier than you think here. Simply the few guys at the front ramp up the pace, and when the group is split, it's very hard to follow them. So I didn't have a better place to use it anyway. But the group regroup here. Now we are entering the second descent towards the downtown, and I was actually starting to get a little bit nervous here because there wasn't much of a pressure on me on the first climb, because I knew there were way better climbers than I am. So I didn't expect to keep up for the whole duration. But right now, I didn't want to get dropped. I wanted to stay with this group and finish in this group, and ideally beat this group in the finish. So I got these pre-effort jitters, if you know what I mean.
I'm looking forward to the second climb.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And similarly to the first return to the climb, there wasn't that much of an opportunity to rest. We were still doing high Z2 effort. Only now you can see it easing up a little bit. And now the group got basically silent, riding very easy. And it was a sign of what was to come in a few minutes. But I arrived at the bottom of the climb in way better shape than in the first one. I had my heart rate at around 150 BPM, which I liked. And here comes the start. I popped the aero boost and I was questioning whether I would be able to stay with this bunch in this climb. It is clear right at the start that the effort wasn't as high as during the first climb, because all of us were tired pretty much. So we are hovering around 5.5 watts per kilo now. But we can see again the group is splitting. So I tried to steer my way into the draft. Even though it is a steep climb, we are going 21 km an hour, so there should be drafting effect. And it looked like 4 riders might break from the group. So we will see if that's going to be the case. My legs were burning already pretty bad here, but usually when it is this close to the finish, I manage to push through the pain. It's the efforts, the hard efforts that are very long until the finish line that really question my willingness to continue in the race. But here I basically dropped to the tail of this group. So if I want to stay with them, I will need to increase the pace even beyond the KOM banner. So I popped the aero boost, which was very helpful in this case. That was exactly what I needed for riding on my own. And I managed to catch the first part of the group, but I really wanted to stay with this group and with the front of this group, so I continued chasing. And after outputting 5 watts per kilo or 4.5 watts per kilo for some time, I managed to get back. So there was only one rider who got away on the climb, I believe, which I considered quite a bit success. And here you can see even the back group managed to catch this one, so we were continuing in a similar way that we arrived at the climb. There were probably a few riders that got dropped on the KOM, but not that many. There's one rider going off right now. That's very early attack. 2Ks to go. It's quite a lot during a ZWIFT race. But if he manages to pull it off, obviously that's going to be a success. I was really thinking about breaking away early again at about 1 kilometer. But I felt quite tired and I expected early attack anyway, early sprint. because there were some really punchy riders in this group. So I thought I would wait at the first sign of the attack and then try to beat whoever caused it. So 1k to go. Obviously we have still a little bit of descending to do, so probably there's not going to be attack until we are firmly at the bottom, which is right here. And now it's only about who's going to attack first. I was tempted, but I decided I would wait for the first orange numbers in the list. And you can see the guy on the front started sprinting, and he had a heads up a little bit, but I managed to pull my best sprinting effort again and finish easily in the first half of the race. If you like this video, guys, subscribe. I'll see you during one of the other races.
Good sprint.